Good morning. Welcome to the porch. Well, it's a nice, cool day down here today, and we're getting ready to actually go to work, and I'm looking forward to that. I actually like working, so getting up and coming down and working every day is a good thing for me. But I thought, well, as nice and cool as it is this morning, we'd go ahead and do a inspirational talk. So that's what we're going to do this morning. And we've named this inspirational talk Cotton Sack Education. Now, if you'll bear with me through the whole video, you'll understand why we named it that, and it'll help you. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a silly story, but it has some meaning to it. Now, I've had a little bit of trouble getting the lighting right in here on the porch because the sun comes out and it just does what it does, and we don't have anything but the natural sunlight. So I hung a blanket over the front of this porch temporarily this morning to keep the sunlight out a little bit, and hopefully the video lighting will work out a little better. So here we go. Okay, now back when I was a kid, well, let me don't start there. I don't want to start with the story. I want to give you a little bit of an explanation right quick. In business, one of the things we did, we had a method of getting better on things that we did, and we called it lessons learned. And we'd have a meeting, sometimes 45 minutes long, even an hour, to where everybody involved with a project or a process, after we got it finished, we'd meet and talk about the things that we did right and the things that we did wrong. And then we would improve the process based off of that information. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to tell a story, and then we're going to come back and break it down, talk about what went right and what went wrong. So let's get on with the cotton sack part of it. Now, back when I was 10 or 12 years old, my old stepdad, he was always doing some pretty crazy stuff, but he was fun. He built a tower, and it's about, I think it's about 20 foot tall. And then he took a steel cable and he hung it in an oak tree out there a little ways away from that tower. And he tied a cotton sack on it, filled that cotton sack up with hay, and then tied it on there, and he made us a swing, is what he did. Well, we had a little rope we'd tie to the swing. We'd climb up the tower, and then we'd pull the swing up, and then we'd take turns swinging off of that tower on that cotton sack. And it was really fun. And here's why it was fun, is because you just swing way out there. I think we must have been swinging 25, 30 foot high on the far end of the pendulum swing. And it was a thrill, I got to tell you, an adrenaline rush. And us kids loved that. We just, I mean, we swung off that thing, seemed like a million times. But, you know, as a young boy, we have it in our nature that when something's a real thrill, there's surely got to be a way to make it even more of a thrill. And that's what I was thinking. And I got to watching my sister when she'd swing on that cotton sack. I'd stand on the tower, you know, because she was too small. I had to bring the swing up there for her, and then I'd let her swing off, and I'd stand there and watch her. Well, what an observation I made was when she came back to that tower on the swing back, that cotton sack would come just right to the inside of that tower platform, and it'd stop for just a split second, and then it'd go the other way. And I got to thinking, you know, if I'd add a little more weight to that cotton sack and the centrifugal force that was already built with her swinging on it, that thing would swing even higher on the other end. And so I thought, all I got to do is wait till that cotton sack comes back and it gets in that tower and it stops. I'll jump on the thing, wrap around that sack with her, and we'll swing off and we'll get a bigger thrill out of it. Well, what could go wrong? So anyway, I devised a plan with her and told her what we was going to do. She was all right with it. which, because there really wasn't much risk to her because she was already wrapped around the cotton sack. The risk was going to be to me. So I got her up there and I swung her off, and that cotton sack came back and it stopped. And when it stopped, I thought, jump. Well, I didn't know that there was a delayed time between me being physically able to jump after I thought jump, but there was. It wasn't much, but it was enough for disaster. So she swung back and I said jump, and I jumped. Well, just as I jumped, I felt that cotton sack in my hands, but it really needed to be in my arms, but it was just at the tips of my fingers, which immediately I knew that my calculations were wrong, and I knew that the next thing that was going to happen wasn't going to be good. It's funny how when you're standing in midair like that, 20 foot up, and there's nothing in under you now because you done jumped off the tower, the cotton sack is done gone. It seems like that millisecond that it takes to get to the ground, you have a little bit of time to think. It seems like 3 or 4 minutes. I know it's not. But that cotton sack left my fingers. I immediately thought, you're going to die. And I could have. But anyway, just immediately after I thought you're going to die, I felt the awfulest pain I'd ever felt in my life. I mean, it hurt. It felt like a truck hit me. And then everything just went dark. Well, when I came to, my sister was standing over me screaming, crying. She thought I was dead. And that's all right because I thought I was dead too. I wasn't breathing. She knew I wasn't breathing, and I could tell I wasn't breathing. But my eyes opened, and I went to gasping for air. Of course, the fall was so hard, the impact was so hard that it knocked all the air out of my lungs. And anyway, I opened up my eyes, started gasping for breath, and finally got a breath of air to come into my lungs again. And I got to tell you right now, that was the sweetest breath of air I ever had in my life. Don't know if I ever had one since as good as that one, but it was good. And anyway, I got up. I was hurting, and I hurt for several days after that. But there's something to be learned by the mistakes we make in life. And obviously, what I did was a mistake. The thing about it is, it was my decision to do that. And I was driven by the thrill of going higher. And in life, so many times we will see something out in front of us that appears to be a reward, and oftentimes it really is. And we just go after it without really thinking it out. Now, in business, we also learned that you should do a risk analysis, but back in those days, I didn't know too much about a risk analysis. I just knowed how to go after rewards, so that's what I'd do. So anyway, when I jumped off that tower, the number one thing I want to say is this: that was my decision. Number two is it didn't turn out good. And number three is I could have blamed the cable, I could have blamed my sister, I could have blamed the tower, the tree, I could have blamed anything and everything. But the bottom line was I was the only one that there was there to blame. I was the one that decided to do it, and I was the one that did it. Now, when I hit the ground, that was the consequences of a bad decision. And it was painful, and it could have been deadly. And sometimes when people make decisions, again, we'll talk about lessons learned. Sometimes when people make decisions, they don't do that risk analysis, risk reward versus risk, and they make mistakes. And sometimes people don't come back from those things. Sometimes you do. If you do, then you get to do a lessons learned on it. If it kills you, you don't. So anyway, I obviously lived through it, so I was able to do a lessons learned. Even with my primitive thinking as a kid, I still understood that there were some things to be learned from that. And I learned, I think this is the most valuable thing that I learned. I learned that my decisions were my decisions, and I had to pay the price, good or bad. And I needed to really think about that before I moved into anything. In that particular case that day, my decision was bad, my calculations were off, and the consequences were extremely painful. And so I had to live with those. And like I said, I didn't get over that in one day. I hurt for several days after that. And in life, you got to learn that. If you're going to make a decision, think about it. Think about the reward. Think about the risk. Sometimes it's better just to say, no, I'm not going to do it. Now, if the reward is high and the risk is very low, probably go ahead and do it, and you'll learn from it, and it may even be fun. It may turn out great for you. If it does, it does. If it don't, then it don't. But we need to learn that. We need to learn that we need to think our way through things before we do them. Think about what the consequences are going to be and what the rewards are going to be, and then say yes or no. Now, in this particular thing, swinging on that cotton sack, believe it or not, that was a turning point in my life. I really started thinking different after that day. I started understanding that if I did something, I needed to be careful about what I did and calculate it as best I could before I pulled the trigger on it, if I pulled the trigger on it at all. And there was things in my life later I didn't pull the trigger on because the risks were just too high. And there were things that I did pull the trigger on because the reward was greater than the risk. And most of the time, those things turned out good for me. But anyway, I hope this little talk uh, maybe help somebody think about things. And I hope it had a little bit of humor in it. Like I said, it hurt me pretty bad, but I guess if you're standing off the outside, it might have been kind of funny. But we here at the Porch love you guys. We want the best for you. That's the reason we do these little talks and stuff. And having said that, may God bless. You guys have a good day.